technology is incredible, what we're doing in the hospital now. And I have to say off the bat that I'm incredibly grateful for that, and I don't want to deny that. But in the chronic disease area and health prevention, I think that there's a lot more that we could be doing to serve humanity and help them understand what is happening in their bodies and what things they can do to improve those. So normally we aim to treat symptoms in the Western model. We go with a complaint, we call it the chief complaint, and they write it down, and there's typically a prescription that will be given for any complaint, such as a rash. I've got a room of women, so I can safely say, except for one, that a lot of the times when we go to the doctor for something, we wind up on birth control pills or antidepressants if they don't understand what's going on. And it can resolve our symptoms for sure, but it really doesn't get to the root cause of the problem, which can create a snowball effect, especially because prescriptions have side effects. When they're needed, but there's also another way to look at this. So in functional medicine, we say we're looking upstream. We're trying to figure out what caused the problem in the first place. And we use advanced labs to reveal what is happening in the body at a deeper level. A good example of these labs would be the gut microbiome. So more and more research is emerging about what's happening at the level of the gut microbiome and how that impacts human health. So we can actually test, see what's going on, identify the root cause or causes, and move on from there with the idea that this can really help people resolve the issue that they're having and that's causing symptoms. And so it's really based on Hippocrates saying, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food, because we use dietary and lifestyle interventions to help resolve whatever that root cause issue is for someone. And I'd like to acknowledge that, that's not always easy to do, because we're very much creatures of habit, creatures of what's happening around us in society, and it's very easy to just kind of go along. Like, look at a grocery store, for example. Kind of hard to break out of what's offered there in the vast majority of the store. We try to go around the center aisles, but look at what is in those stores in the center aisles. So the idea is just to use the dietary and lifestyle interventions to honor the body's wisdom. The body is a self-healing organism when we give it what it needs. And so this is the path that people take when they work with me. And one of the things that I like to ask people, either at a seminar like this or when I work with them one-on-one, because the dietary and lifestyle interventions can be a little bit challenging, is what is it that you want to be healthy for? What is your motivation to try to learn these things and implement them in your lives? So I left the bottom half of that first page totally blank so that you can take a moment and just think, why did you even attend today? Why did you take time out of your day to come and learn about this? What is your why? It could be a child, a grandchild, a pet, a hobby, a group of friends, whatever it is. Most people do have something that really motivates them to live the healthiest life that they possibly can. So if you want to, just take a moment and I'll be quiet and you can write down your why. So I'm glad that this seems like a valuable exercise, because you guys are really giving it some thought and writing some things down. So keep that why in mind as I go through some of the interventions. If you're thinking that actually sounds kind of hard, I'm not sure if I can do that. But before moving forward, it's important to understand a little bit of the vocabulary that I'll be using for the rest of the presentation. So there's a difference between health span and lifespan. Is anyone already familiar with this difference? Yeah, so health span is talking about the number of years that we're actually healthy and vital during our lives. And the lifespan is just the span of our lives, how long we're alive. And it seems that people's health spans are actually getting shorter. We see a lot of children who are really sick with diabetes and high blood pressure and things like that. So the health span seems to be shortening. We can do a lot of things to extend the lifespan, but that's really not the goal. We want to be healthy so that we can enjoy our lives. And then the difference between chronological age and biological age. Yes?
Yes, there is a recent article in Wall Street Journal. The lifespan continues to increase and health span started decreasing during the last 5 years or so.
Yeah, it's a crisis and we really need to address it. How about chronological age versus biological age? Anybody familiar with this? Yes? Okay. The chronological age is talking about the age that you actually are in years. So anyone born on the same birth date as you is the same chronological age. Biological age is basically referring to the health of our cells, and this is dynamic. So at certain points in our lives, we may have a biological age that's younger than our chronological age. Some people may have a biological age that's older than their chronological age. And you can actually see this when you meet and talk to someone. We all know those people that look way younger than their stated age and way older than their stated age. So it's dynamic, and we can really truly influence the age of our cells and the health of our cells. And they can prove it because we have a biological age test now, which is awesome. They've been working on this for a while. It's a 4th generation test now. And so they did an amazing study in 2021 where they tested the participants' biological age before they began an 8-week long protocol. This was led by Kara Fitzgerald. And so in only 8 weeks, with a reasonable amount of intervention, when they tested people after the 8 weeks, they lost 4 years of biological age. So to me, that's worth it. 4 years of biological age in 2 months, yes.
That says they have data that the cell look better than it did before. That doesn't guarantee a +4 on the other end.
+4 on the other end.
A longer life.
Okay, good point. And I will talk a little bit more about that. But what you brought up is really important because age is the #1 risk factor for any disease out there. If you can think of any chronic disease, any health issue, whether it's getting the flu or high blood pressure or anything, as your age increases, your risk for developing that increases. So by reversing the age of your cells, and there's nothing wrong with aging, it's totally normal. I'm happier, the older I get, the happier I get. So I don't want to sound like I don't think aging is a good thing. It's totally natural, but we want to keep our cells as healthy as possible as we age because it reduces our risk for disease.
Okay.
This is basically why, there's a tremendous societal impact on the fact that our health span is shortening. So research says right now that chronic disease, the average person spends the last 16 years of their lives with chronic disease. And we need to do something about that because our medical system can't keep up with it. Our loved ones can't keep up with it. It's just, it's a real problem. But there is a path forwards, and that's because of so much of the research that's been done. So when they did the Human Genome Project a while back, we all thought they were going to crack the code and figure out, the answer to every disease that affected humanity. But it didn't really work out that way, and that's because we're finding out more about nature versus nurture. We're finally really able to answer this a bit. And a lot of the studies have been done on identical twins because they have the same DNA, but their health outcomes can be very different. And now we know why. So DNA is responsible for your physical form. It is a code. You can't change the code that you're born with. It's responsible for our physical form, for some of our individual characteristics, but I'm sure we've all heard we share, some vast majority of our DNA with an earthworm, for example. So the code has to be really similar from organism to organism in order to just be in a body on the earth. Who's familiar with epigenetics? So this is an emerging field in science that is so exciting because what it's showing is that we can actually influence the way our DNA is expressed. So epigenetics is referring to, and just bear with me for those who really like science, I'll tell you that they're called methyl groups. It's like something sitting on top of the strands of DNA that influence how it expresses itself. It's like light switches. There's basically on and off positions for the switches on top of the DNA. And I intentionally chose a picture with a person's hand because I want to show you that we can do things to flip the switches in different directions ourselves. And those are dietary and lifestyle choices. So say this is a tumor suppressor gene and it's suppressing tumors, it's preventing tumors from growing in your body. You would want that switch to be in the on position. Stress is something that will put it in the off position. That's one of the reasons why stress is so strongly correlated with developing cancer, because it turns the tumor suppressor gene off and then cancer can flourish in the body. Or if this were an anti-inflammatory gene, you would also want that one on. And so for the remainder of the presentation, I will be helping you understand what things we can do to keep the switches in the position that we want them to be in, so that the code to our DNA is expressing health and wellness. Any questions about epigenetics, about how that all works? I tried to simplify it as much as I can. Great. Again, aging is normal and wonderful, and as we age, so the switches, as we age, the switches will naturally tend to go in an undesirable position. And that's also normal, but we can help our bodies through these dietary and lifestyle interventions to keep those switches in the position that we want them to be. And inflammation, pain, and disease are actually not normal parts of aging. It is possible to live a healthy life all the way until it's over. Our bodies and our health are a reflection of what our DNA code is and what we expose the cells to. That's another more simple way of thinking about this. So we're constantly exposed to food, water, air, some clean, some not. We make choices or not about how well we sleep, exercise, engage in meaningful relationships, and just take care of ourselves. And for me, I really think that, and just based on a client could come to me with any imaginable problem. And at the end of the day, self-care is a huge part of what helps people live healthy lives. Because stress is one of the number one things that really causes those switches to move in the wrong direction, so that we get sick. More way to think about this would be that the DNA is like the framework for the house. Every house has to have pretty similar structure in order to stand up and be usable and not collapse. But the way we decorate the home is widely different from person to person, and people tend to be very intentional about the way they decorate their home. So this is, what are you doing about the way your DNA is being expressed in your body? But no one tells us this stuff. We have no way to know it, right? We don't go, sadly, and I have many doctors that are friends, but we don't go to the doctor and learn about this and learn what it is that we need to do for our DNA to express itself in a healthy way. But we can, and so we want to be as intentional as we learn more information. We want to be as intentional as possible about what we're doing, the same way that we would be really intentional about the way we decorate our home. And the final way to look at this is that when you're in each of these rooms, this room, for example, would be a reflection of a body that eats McDonald's and never exercises and doesn't have anyone fun to hang out with. It's pretty miserable. And over here, there's a lot of intention here. Our bodies are the same way, and it's interesting to think about the fact that if you had the same experience, say eating a meal in each one of those rooms, it would feel very different. And though this house, obviously you would need more money to decorate it this way, there's a lot that, and we are born with a code, we are born with DNA, we have something that we're trying to work with, but that place could obviously be, cleaned up, and there could be a lot more intention put into what it looks like. So the background was to show you that we're actually powerful creators. We're not victims of our genetics. Only 10% of people who have a genetic predisposition to a certain disease process will actually express that in their lifetime. And the body, as I said, is always doing the only thing that it knows how to do, which is heal itself. So we just have to do our best, and there's a lot more to learn. So right now, you may be thinking, oh, this is amazing, I can't wait to learn what the interventions are so I can do them. Or if you've been sick or had a particular disease, you might be thinking, oh my gosh, and perhaps being hard on yourself for thinking that maybe you did something wrong. And that's absolutely not the case. And when we blame our bodies and we try to control our bodies, you brought up the good point of like overly sterilizing. We're not trying to control what's happening in the body. We're trying to support and nourish it with the information that we have today, because that's really how we can express wellness in our lives. And symptoms, again, it's the only way that the body has to let us know something is going on. Pay attention. And so at first we'll get a little tap on the shoulder, and then maybe a nudge, but eventually the piano is going to be falling on our head if we don't listen. So covering up symptoms can be a rocky road. And maybe we can learn to appreciate it when the body is telling us that something's out of balance with those symptoms and learn how to listen. The best example that I know of to demonstrate that the body is always helping us, even if we're not aware of it and we're thinking, oh my gosh, why is my body doing this? I wish this, name the issue, would just go away, is resistant weight loss due to toxin exposure. So if someone has toxic burden from their water, from some chemicals that they were exposed to, working in the hospital, I had an incredibly high level of toxic exposure. And so it does happen to people. And the body is so intelligent that when it has that toxic burden, it will create more fat cells. Because if the toxins are in the fat cells, they're not in the bloodstream and they're not affecting the organs. So these people have they cannot lose weight until that toxic burden is reduced. They don't know it. I can see it when I do testing on people, but a lot of people don't know that this is what the cause is, and they feel incredibly frustrated and in a battle with their body because they can't lose weight, when in reality, the body is doing something to save that person's life. And it's a co-creation, so have fun. When you think about some of the things that I'm going to talk about, that the interventions are, it's a co-creation. You have creative authority, you have free will with what you do with your body, and you can have fun with that. This is the vehicle that we move through our lives in. We can never get rid of it. It's with us all the time, and it's what allows us to have sensation and experience. So we really need to treat it like the sacred temple that it is. It's the home for our soul at the end of the day, whether you think the soul is something that's, magical, spiritual, religious, or mechanistic. It doesn't really matter. It's still what you have to have this experience. So it's important that we take care of our bodies. All right. So the goal is to get health span and lifespan to be as closely matched as possible. Nutrition is one of the most potent signals to our genes. An epinutrient is a nutrient that has an epigenetic effect. So this is a nutrient that will flip the switch in a desirable position on top of the DNA so that it expresses itself in a healthy way. Epinutrients are molecules that regulate the gene expression, and these foods are really dense in epinutrients. Some examples would be folate, vitamin B12, choline, betaine, and methionine. And they're best absorbed from dietary sources. So even like the folate is a good example. We give pregnant women folate all the time, but actually it can be harmful. We really need to work on dietary sources for this stuff. And if you want, you can have the slides at the end if you want to scan the QR code so you don't have to write all the stuff down. And so it's back to the food is medicine. So that we call this methylation when the foods are donating those epinutrients to the little groups on top of the DNA. That's called methylation. And so the nutrients in food turn the switches on. And so here's what they did in the study. People ate a plant-centric diet, not vegetarian, but focused on plants because of how nutrient-dense plants are and how many epinutrients are in them. So they had 2 cups of leafy greens, 2 cups of cruciferous vegetables. Does anyone know what the cruciferous vegetable family is? Yeah, I see more nodding. Good. It's like everything that you can think of that makes that sulfurous smell when you cook it. So broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage. I used to feel like, ugh, when I smelled those vegetables, but the sulfur in them is what's causing that smell, and that sulfur actually drives the detoxification pathways in our bodies. So women with estrogen-dominant breast cancer, for example, can either take concentrated brassica vegetables in a capsule and really load up on this, and that helps them process all that extra estrogen. And then on top of, so 2 cups leafy greens, 2 cups cruciferous vegetables, and 3 cups of colorful vegetables. And the reason you always hear eat the rainbow, why this is so important, is because every color of food and every food itself has a unique offering for our body. So if we eat a wider variety of foods, especially plant foods, we're able to receive that offering in lots of different ways. Like they all have something special to give us, so we want to receive as much of that as we can. And your local produce will actually provide you with exactly what the body needs at that particular season. So if you go to a farmer's market in winter and buy the local stuff, it's likely to have a lot more vitamin D in it. People ate, in the study, just 6 ounces of protein a day, animal protein. And animal protein actually is really good for detoxification. You can absolutely do the protocol vegetarian, but they ate 6 ounces of animal protein. And they also ate 5 to 10 eggs a week. The eggs are full of choline, which is one of the epinutrients that I pointed out on a previous slide. So the eggs are packed with things that will help your DNA express itself in a healthy way. The 9 ounces of liver a week, I choose to skip on, and I take capsules instead because I am not a fan. And 9 ounces is a lot. If you're looking at like a 3-ounce portion, you're eating liver 3 times a week, but it is really potent. It's an amazing epinutrient offering, but capsules are available if you prefer that. Nuts and seeds, they had a 1/4 cup of those every day. Yes.
Did you say that, like I hear these ads every day for these vitamins that, you know, that get you all your fruits and veggies and everything. So are you saying that you can get some of the needed fruits and veggies by just taking capsules?
So it's a great question, and I do have a slide on supplements, but I'll answer it now because it's pertinent, and thank you for asking that question. People do ask me all the time, can't you just get all of these nutrients from dietary sources? And my answer is, if that's your full-time job and you're paying attention to everything that you put on your plate and you know what nutrients are in there and how to balance those out, it's possible. For the average person that's really just trying to live life and like do the best that they can, it's going to be a lot more challenging. And for someone who really needs to learn about nutrition and understand where the particular nutrients are coming from, I think it's a lot harder. I work a lot with supplements. I like to customize supplement protocols for people based on whatever their health goals are or what their history is and what they want to achieve. But supplements are a wonderful way to improve our health. It's just important to understand that the FDA does not regulate the supplement industry. There's no one paying attention to what's actually inside those bottles. When it was studied, about 25% of them didn't even contain the active ingredient. And a lot of them contain heavy metals and other things that you would never want to ingest that are actually going to make you sicker. If you want supplement recommendations, I'm very happy to help with that.
What about organic?
Very important. Organic is very important because unfortunately, now glyphosate is the main pesticide that's used on plants, and they've developed GMO crops now. So before they could spray fields, but they would spray before that crop emerged out of the ground. And so the plant itself would not get the dousing with that glyphosate. But now that they've made GMO crops, the crops can withstand that dusting. And so they actually spray crops, especially wheat, with the pesticide. So the actual physical plant or fruit or vegetable that you're eating has been sprayed, and that was not the case in the past. And it is affecting human health for sure. And it's actually, glyphosate is so prevalent that it's in the rainwater all around the world, even in places where they're not using the pesticide. So I choose organic as much as I can, mainly because I don't want that stuff on the planet anymore. I mean, it is really important, and it does affect our health. If you Google glyphosate, you'll get 8 articles by the FDA, etc., telling you that it's totally fine. But if you actually start to look at the studies that were done, it's not, and we need to do something about it. Does that answer the beets are so healthy. They actually had the participants eat 1 to 2 beets a day, and good quality fats. So be thinking extra virgin olive oil. The nuts and seeds provide good quality fats. Avocado. I love MCT oil. Not the processed oils. I like MCT oil. Yeah, the brain really likes that kind of oil. It's a medium chain triglyceride, and the brain runs really well on it. So people feel like a little bit clearer minded. It helps with fat burning. It's really nice, and it's kind of tasteless. So I put it in a smoothie, or if I want a little bit more I want to make something more palatable, I'll just spread that on it.
What's it derived from?
Could you say that name again?
It's MCT, it's medium chain triglyceride,
Thank you.
What is it derived from?
mostly coconuts, yeah.
And it's an oil?
Uh-huh, yes.
So where do you get that?
You can buy it at the grocery store. I have some good sources for that myself. You can look on Amazon. I would never buy a supplement on Amazon, but I think it's probably okay to buy the MCT oil on Amazon, and you can find.
MCT.
And, you know, talking about the organic, you know, I've read The Dirty Dozen.
Good. Yep.
And then
Perfect.
they added a couple, so now we're probably up to 14, the Dirty 14 or whatever. So are you gonna expound on that, or is your general statement everything organic? Like bananas?
Yeah, so it depends on, I mean, unfortunately, it's so expensive, so a lot of it depends on what you can afford. And again, even if something's on that, clean 15 list for me, I just don't want the pesticide in the ground anymore. I mean, the soil has a microbiome. I'm getting way off topic here, but the soil has a microbiome too. And when we spray that glyphosate on the plants and the soil, it's killing everything inside the soil too. So we need all those organisms to help our food be nutritious. And unfortunately, what's happening as we're spraying all that pesticide and killing the bugs that live in the soil, it's no longer soil, it's turning into dirt. And this is a huge problem that we're facing that not that many people are talking about, but there's not an easy way to repopulate that. You were next, yes?
I'm trying to understand what, if anything, is the difference between MCT oil and, say, organic coconut oil?
So it's the triglyceride. It's actually like a chemistry thing. It's the chains of triglycerides in the different formulations. So like MCT oil is
the way it's processed, you mean?
not even the way it's processed. It's just, there are differences in the processing, but it's more like what the backbone of the chemical structure of it is. And so the medium chain tend to be liquid, where the coconut oil itself will be a little bit more solid because of those chemical differences. Yes.
I know it's off topic. Avocados, organic versus non-organic. Because they got that thick skin.
Yeah, they do have a thick skin, you're right. And so they're, if you have the option, I would always say choose organic. But yeah, typically the skin, the thickness of something's skin, it does matter because it'll prevent that fruit from absorbing the pesticide. Good question. Yeah. So phytonutrients they're different than epinutrients. These are the word that we give to the powerful compounds found in plants. It's what gives the plant its bright, beautiful color. And so again, each plant has a different offering, and each color has a different offering. And initially, the plants themselves contain these phytonutrients because they provide protection for the plants. But when we ingest them, we get those benefits. And a good example is the lignans in flax, and that's considered a phytoestrogen. So people going through menopause can up their flax intake. I like to make flax muffins. Maybe people wouldn't think those taste so yummy, but it gives you a lot of what acts like estrogen in the body. So the plants have all kinds of things that they're offering us to help us with our health. There we go. So I find this even more amazing than the epinutrients are these adaptogens. And so when you eat an epinutrient, so when you consume something that has folate in it, for example, adaptogens actually direct those epinutrients to the DNA that need help with getting their switch in the correct position. And guess what we ingest that act as adaptogens in the body? It's spices. It's rosemary, it's turmeric, it's stuff that contains the vitamins A, D, and C. But it's so interesting, the Indian spice mixes that are part of the culture are so intelligently designed because of the way that they direct those nutrients in the food that we're eating to the DNA that needs help. So season your food and season it well. Here, this is just what you had asked me before about supplementation. Yes.
Before we go into that, I noticed that a couple of the slides also had fruits.
Yeah, and perhaps I should have picked pictures that really had more vegetable and less fruit. So if you eat they did go pretty low carb on the protocol, I think they had maybe 1 piece of fruit a day. Honestly, on a Mediterranean diet, you're looking at 1 to 2 pieces of fruit a day, and I recommend going for the low glycemic fruits, like the berries. Apple is a good one. But yeah, there are pictures of fruits in there because they were prettier and more colorful, but it's not a good idea to make a smoothie with orange juice and banana and it's just a sugar load. Good point. Thank you for bringing that
What
up.
about apple cider vinegar?
Excellent. Most people don't have enough stomach
What about the
acid.
pills as compared to the liquid?
Like
They have
a-
pills.
You're saying the betaine hydrochloric acid?
There are apple cider vinegar.
Oh, pills.
supplements.
Yeah, no, that doesn't really matter, to be honest with you.
Which
You
one you
mix
take?
some of it in water with it, and you want to use it with a meal because as we age, we lose stomach acid, and we need to replace that because that stomach acid has a job in our bodies. It kills bacteria on the food that we're eating and prevents us from getting infections and all kinds of stuff. And I could do a whole lecture on stomach acidity. But yeah, the apple cider vinegar is great.
Speaking about acidity, what about kombucha? Are you familiar with kombucha?
Yeah, and so just be careful that some of them have a lot of sugar. Like they add sugar at the end, not even in the process of feeding the bacteria that create it. So look at the sugar content of kombucha, but it's wonderful. They have a really good one at the Campbell's Farmers Market.
Sauerkraut.
Excellent.
Dill pickle.
Yeah.
Give us some others.
So we'll do a whole talk on the gut microbiome.
Okay.
And for people who react to fermented foods, if you notice that you have any kind of reaction, headache, flushing, cut them out for a while. That's really like a histamine reaction. So it's not across the board. Pay attention to how you
If
feel.
you're concentrating on a low sodium diet, I was told not to eat pickles or anything fermented. So what is your thought on that? Is there a way to not have sodium in fermented products?
I think they often add salt in them. My answer to that would be like make your own and minimize the salt in it. It's actually not that hard to do. Yeah.
Good point.
Get a big How do you ferment without salt?
Yeah, I don't know that you really can, but I think you can at least minimize it a little bit.
Okay. I have.
Alcohol, and I forgot to mention as well that in the protocol they avoided dairy and grains. Those are pretty inflammatory, and there's like the study that they did in the 8 weeks that lost the 4 years of biological age. Those people did not eat grains or dairy or alcohol. So this is a good time to go back to your why. And think about like what is it that you really want to be healthy for. Grains can be, and I'm not saying never have grains. If you follow a Mediterranean diet, 1 serving, maybe 2 of grains a day. But here in the US, at least for me growing up as a child, I had cereal for breakfast, I had a sandwich for lunch, and I had pasta for dinner, and that is not beneficial for health. The red wine does contain resveratrol, which, yes.
I just wanted to ask about dairy.
Oh,
Because
can you
I'm
press it?
breastfeeding.
My son just turned 21. I think he should know.
Yes.
I got osteoporosis, and the doctor told me I have to get a lot of dairy. So what should
Yeah, I mean, after a certain point, we're actually not absorbing any of the calcium from a dairy source like that. I mean, I would say leafy greens are full of calcium, and that's a much better way to get it. If you tolerate dairy, no problem, and you have a good source, and it's, super high quality, and you like it, I would never, there's nothing that I would say anyone absolutely must do, never ever. It's all about, everyone is unique, and do what feels right to you. But leafy greens also have a lot of calcium in them. Yes,
What is high quality dairy? What makes it high quality?
I would say organic and grass-fed dairy is the best to go for. Exercise, here we are at the JCC, so we all have exercise top of mind, and what they did in the study was something that I think is achievable for most people. It was only 5 days a week, 30 minutes a day at 60 to 80% exertion. So that's it's a light sweat. So you can take a brisk walk for a half an hour and tick that box on this particular intervention. Fasting. I could also do a whole lecture on fasting. But in the study, they did 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., 12 hours of fasting. for most. If you follow the rule to not eat a meal or really even snack a couple of hours or a few hours before bed, the 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. becomes pretty easy. And just to note that, like, there's lots of different ways to fast and lots of different benefits even that come after that 12-hour mark. We start to really reap even more benefits, but it's important to know that for women, especially postmenopausal women, it may put, some of the literature suggests that fasting more than 12 hours may put enough stress on the body that you actually lose the benefits. So 12 hours is a pretty good place to start. Sleep, it was just 7 hours a night. If you feel that that's difficult and you're having a hard time getting restorative sleep, some places to start would be melatonin production is huge. And melatonin is actually a really powerful hormone in our bodies that prevents cancer and helps with detoxification and all kinds of things. So when you're inside in the evening, start to try to make your indoor light mimic what's happening outside. That's obviously a little bit more challenging in the winter, but just if you have dimmers and stuff like that, it'll help with your melatonin production to do that. Obviously, electronics before bed and going to bed the same time at every night are just a few suggestions to help with restorative sleep. Restoration. So in the study, they did like meditation twice a day for 10 to 20 minutes. A lot of people, you say the word meditation and they're like, oh my gosh, absolutely not, never, I can't. And I totally understand that. It's not for everyone and it doesn't have to be. But what they did was restore themselves for 10 to 20 minutes, 2 times a day. And you can do that in lots of different ways. I tell my kids, I'm taking a time out and I go to my room and I put my feet up for a few minutes, and to me that's just as good as meditation because I'm getting the downtime that I need. Soaking in the bath, lighting candles. Imagination is something that like we hardly really tap into anymore, but if you do get a chance to lay there and put your feet up and you notice your imagination going, that's incredibly healing. And community, which is what the JCC is so good at. We really need to do this together, especially because we're living in a system and in a society where we need to encourage and inspire each other to take care of ourselves, because the system isn't really set up to allow us to do that, but it's incredibly important. So who has a self-care practice in place already, if you're willing to say yes? Awesome.
I get regular massages.
Perfect. Excellent one. Anybody else? Alexa?
I like to drink tea in the evenings.
Yeah, and really be mindful about that, right? And sit there and feel that hot cup against your hands. That's such a good one. I love that. Yes?
I've been getting acupuncture every couple of weeks,
Perfect.
which I really love. I literally fall asleep on the table.
Excellent. And it just goes to show how much your body must need that. And so one thing to keep in mind is that we really want to try to incorporate self-care into our daily lives, so we don't have to wait for a special occasion. We can do something small for ourselves every day that just helps calm our nervous system and feel like our best selves. And if we sometimes, we know people that are in need of self-care, they're going through a hard time, whatever it may be, it's nice to invite people to practice self-care with you, no matter what that looks like. Maybe it's going for a hike. I actually will just sit quietly with a friend sometime as a way to practice self-care. And so, yeah, I'm so grateful for the JCC. And, my kids went to preschool over at the JCC preschool. Now my older son is 13 and my younger one is 11. And even though I went away from the JCC for a few years when they finished preschool, I always felt like this place was a little bit of a home to me. Every time I set foot in the lobby, especially over in the preschool, I just felt like, I'm back home. I would hang out at the pool with my friends who also had kids in the preschool, and this is like the perfect place for us to really talk about health and wellness. And I would love for you to continue to join us so that we can create a community of people who are interested and engaged and really want to live their best lives. So putting it into practice, what does this look like? Everyone kind of groaned a little bit with the dairy and gluten, which I completely understand. That sounds like a big hurdle to cross. And so one thing that can be really helpful, I'll use the 7 cups of vegetables as an example. So say you don't normally cook with that much veg and you're thinking, oh, I don't know if I can get all of that into my diet. You want to keep ratcheting the notch back until you land somewhere where you think I could do that. So keep making it smaller and simpler until it's like, oh, I could put that into practice, even if that means you just cut up a carrot one day and you eat the little circle round. If you've made a step forwards, that's totally fine. And then just keep building from there. So whatever you think about that you want to do, and you could apply this to anything in your life. Whatever you think about that sounds overwhelming and like something that you can't do, keep backing up until you're thinking, I can do that. Like if you want to do 10 push-ups a day and 5 days go by and you haven't done 1 push-up, like you could keep backing it up all the way to just standing against a wall and putting your hands there, and you'll then be able to move forwards. And the second page of your handout is a 24-hour timeline. And so I have people use that on a regular day when you're at home. Obviously, you don't have to fill anything out when you are sleeping, but during your awake hours, carry it around with you for a day and every time you change an activity, write down what you're doing. It can be extremely eye-opening to discover, like, oh, I've been scrolling for a couple of hours, and seeing it written down, it can help you identify possible swap outs. So say you want to start meal prepping, but we are living in such a busy world that it's very intimidating. You think like, I can't meal prep, I absolutely don't have time for that. But if you see every minute of your day accounted for on paper, you could pick something like, I'd rather give up that 15 minutes of whatever it be that you identify and switch that out for something that's going to benefit my health. And so our next, I think June 19th is our next one. 26. So I guess stay tuned. I can't remember. I couldn't remember what the date was, but
No, June 19th is,
yeah.
there is Juneteenth.
Yeah, that's right.
Holiday, so it's going to be June 26th.
Okay, so cross off the 19 and put the 26.
Okay, good.
So as well, if you have thoughts, like if you want to learn more about Mediterranean diet, or you want to learn about gut health, or you want to learn about stress management, is one that I'll definitely do because it's so important. If you want to learn about toxins, like anything you can possibly think about that's health and wellness related, I can do a talk like this on. So if you have something you want to learn more about, just be in touch with Siggy or Karen, and I'll do it.
I just want to throw this out because of the vegetables that you were saying. And
Yeah.
the cups. I'm trying to do this now.
Awesome.
And I'm embracing organic and all of that. And what I find is a salad is so boring. I get it at the farmer's market.
Awesome.
And that helps because it just gets so mundane.
It can. And another way to really incorporate a lot of veg, because I find that people don't really, they can, but not always feel like full from eating a cold dish like that. Mm-hmm. So a wonderful two ways that you can really incorporate more veg would be, number one, making a soup, because vegetables taste so good in soup. They go down so easy. It's nourishing, it's hot. You could put, even my kids will eat like tons of vegetables in a soup. So that's one alternative. And then the other thing that can really help with veg intake is to build a smoothie with a lot of veg, not so much fruit, but the veg in there is awesome. And then the EGCG that was listed as being one of the adaptogens is found in green tea. So what I did my training through the Institute for Functional Medicine, and they suggested using green tea as a base for a smoothie. So it adds more flavor. It's super yum. You're going to direct all the nutrients from the vegetables in the smoothie to the DNA that needs it the most, because you'll have that adaptogen on board as the base of the smoothie.
Are you ever going to share any recipes?
I give you whatever you want. You ask me what you want. I can create recipe books. Like, I've got pretty much all of it. So you just tell me what you want, and I'd be happy to share.
Soups are, a great source, but okay, chicken noodle.
Oh no, you can do a million different things with soups. So I'll create an online, like a soup cookbook, and I'll bring a link to it that you can scan the QR code when we come back next time. You're welcome.
Smoothies too.
You want soups and smoothies? I can do a collection of 50 recipes. So if you want soups and smoothies, I'll do that.
Yeah.
It'll be online, not physical, because the pictures are really beautiful and it costs a lot to print that out. But I'd be more than happy, because it's all about nutrition. And so how do you do that? The recipes help put it into practice. So yeah, I'll create a collection for you guys. And the bottom line is that to really, for all of the talks that I'll do, is just to take care, because when our bodies don't feel good, it can feel like a prison. And one of my favorite Rumi quotes is, why do you stay in prison when the door is so wide open? But we have to help each other find the door when we can't see it, because we get lost in the weeds sometimes, especially when we're not feeling good. It can be really hard to take that first step to try to feel better and do, like, you guys are the elite, right? You're here and you're active and you want to do something about your health, but it also goes in waves. So there's other times when you might not feel quite so motivated to do things like that, and we can help each other. And I rely on my friends to help me all the time when I'm like, I'm just not feeling it. I don't want to exercise. Well, let's go for a walk then. And we can do that for each other. And that's really the community that I want to build and let in. And important to remember for this presentation and any future presentation that we do, you can ask me anything and I'll tell you, what I know about it. I'm happy to do that, but it's not medical advice. This is all just for educational purposes only. And that's all I have for you today.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on the notification bell to stay updated with my latest content. For personalized health programs and more expert advice on nutrition and wellness, visit my website at lizgreenfield.com. Let's embark on this journey to optimal health together. Your path to empowered living through optimal health starts here. I'll see you in the next video.